Lesson 50, Summarizing Dates. In this lesson, we'll take a look at how a pivot table can group daily dates up to months, quarters, and years, which makes for a very easy year-over-year report. We'll also take a look at this somewhat cryptic way that we can create a summary by week. Okay, so here we have a pivot table where we've summarized revenue by date. Now it's interesting, in the old Excel you almost always had to have dates going down the row area because there weren't enough columns to show daily dates going across. Of course, now with 16,000 columns, there's no hassle in putting the columns going across unless you have more than 46 years worth of dates. Now, who would want a pivot table this wide? Well, in this lesson, we're actually going to be taking the pivot table and converting those daily dates to months. And in that case, you might want to have months going across the report. Now, I want to change one setting here that we've been using. In all of the lessons so far, we've left the pivot table field list in its original orientation. There's actually 5 different arrangements, and I want to move the field section and area section side by side. This will allow more room for additional fields because as we group, the pivot table is actually going to create new virtual fields for us, and we'll be able to see those fields better in this arrangement of the pivot table field list. Well, in your pivot table, make sure that you select just one date in column A. We can't select the row labels heading, can't select an entire row, it has to be a single date. And then on the Pivot Table Tools Options tab, we're going to choose Group Field. This will display the date version of the grouping dialog box, and we can choose to group these daily dates up to months, quarters, and years. I want to caution you that you should never group to just months. If you would group to just months, Excel will take January of this year and January of last year and group it into a single row called January. While that makes sense for the 0.001% of the time that you're doing something called seasonality analysis, most of the time it's not what you want to do. Well, I'll click OK, and you'll see that we now have a report that summarizes years, quarters, and months. One new feature in pivot tables for Excel 2007 is that multiple items in the row area are automatically collapsed into a single column. This is a brand new feature, and for this particular lesson, I would like to go back to the old way where each field is in its own column. So I'll go to the Design tab, and under Report Layout, choose Outline Form. Here you'll see we're back to the old style where we have headings for years, quarters, and date. One slightly frustrating thing is that as you group these fields, for some reason, Excel decides not to give us subtotals for each quarter or for each year. Relatively easy to do. We'll choose the quarter field and then go back to the Options tab. In the Active Field group, we'll choose Field Settings, and this is where we can change subtotals from None to Automatic and click OK. You'll see that we now have totals for each quarter. We'd have to do the same thing for years, Active Field, Field Settings, and Automatic. Click OK. Well, it's putting the totals above each group. Again, we do have control over that on the Design tab. Under Subtotals, say Show All Subtotals at the bottom of the group. It's interesting that these new features are adding flexibility, subtotals at the top or the bottom. However, for those of us who have been using pivot tables for a long time, I admit that it seems confusing. I mean, we have to come back here and change to Outline Form, and then change the subtotals to the top of the group. It's a little alarming when Microsoft changes the defaults. I guess it's a good way for us to be aware that those new features are there. However, it requires a little bit of discovery for us to go through and change the defaults. An interesting thing when we group dates is you'll notice that we now have 2 new fields in the field list, quarters and years. This was a great decision by Microsoft to make these be new fields because now they can be pivotable. For example, we can take the quarters field and remove it. and then take the year field and move it to the column labels. If we would turn off the grand total for the rows, so in other words, leave it on for columns only, we now have a great report showing us 2008, 2009, and we could build a calculation out here to show us the percentage growth from year to year. All right, I'm going to remove years from the table and ungroup the date field. We're back to daily dates. With the website, MrExcel.com, my phone number's right on the website, so I occasionally get calls from folks. And I remember I was driving through St. Louis. Now, I'm not from St. Louis. It was my first time driving through St. Louis, and someone from Mexico called. And he said, hey, I have a pivot table with dates, and I need to group this up to week. And I'm trying to remember what the grouping dialog box looks like. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, quarters, and years is what I think it is. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, quarters, years. Yeah, there's no week option here at all. And as I was driving down I-70, I said, I don't think there's a way to do this. Unfortunately, I feel bad now. There is a way. If you choose days and only days, so here I unselected months and chose days, the number of days setting becomes enabled. And we can group this up to 7 days. Now at this point, you might want to go grab the calendar on the wall and see that in 2008, January 1st was a Tuesday, so you might want your week to start on December 30th, 2007. In that case, edit this field, 12/30/2007. That way your weeks will always run Sunday through Saturday. Click OK, and Excel has now created new groupings that represent weekly periods. In my Excel seminars, one time someone raised their hand and said they had 13-month accounting periods. That's easy to do. We go to the group field and change to 28-day periods, and that will create 13 monthly periods in each year. In another seminar, someone raised their hand and said that they had a 4-4-5 manufacturing calendar. Well, I don't have a good solution for that. You'd have to go back to the original data set, add a new field that calculated which period each date fell in. Okay, well there you have it. A great way to take daily dates in a pivot table and very easily group them up to months, quarters, years, or weeks. I hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than Live Lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live Lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.